Welcome to your Fantasy Fulfilled, right here on ESPN The Network. I'm your host, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess, and I'm back like the Broncos, the Chargers, the Falcons, and the Jets, coming off of a bye week. And speaking of bye, we have an action-packed week of NFL as all teams have played or are playing, and no one has a bye this week. That's right, no one, in my Alicia Keys voice. So a total of 16 games this week, and we've already seen 3, including wins by the Lions, the Cowboys, and the Steelers on Thursday. Oh, and speaking of wins, my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, the ultimate survival guide for relationships and households during football season, is a winner, and it's available right now on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. So you all be sure to go out and get your copies, and I thank you in advance. And while on the subject of being thankful, I hope that you all had a safe and joyous and wonderful Thanksgiving with your families and friends, and that you were able to get all the beans, greens, potatoes, and tomatoes that your little hearts desired. And my boo, Des Bryant, you were heavy on my mind and in my heart over the holiday, as I know that this was your first Thanksgiving without your father, who unfortunately passed away recently. So my condolences go out to you and your family, and I commend you on your dominating performances over these past couple of weeks. And I know that you've been playing with a heavy heart and vicariously for your father and in remembrance of him. And so I just wanted to show you some love. And speaking of which, make sure that somebody within the Cowboys organization definitely checks the mailbox, because I got a little something out there for you, all right? And now that we're coming to a close for the month of November and moving closer to December, this is actually a time of year that I love, that post-Thanksgiving, early Christmas, holiday, festive season. Again, it is a time of year that I love, and I'm going to make sure that you love your fantasy football rosters here for week number 12. Hey, have no fear. Joan Madden is here. So let's get this thing started with your automatics. And for the first time in his NFL career, I'm able to mention the last name Manning without having to specify which one. But just for good measure, I'm referring to Elijah Nelson Mandela Manning. Okay, scratch the Mandela part. It is actually Eli, if you will, and his teammates as they take on the winless Browns this afternoon. Now, the Giants have won 5 straight, and Archie's youngest lad has thrown an average of 265 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions during that span. And with or without Joe Hayden in the lineup, the Browns are extremely generous to opposing quarterbacks. As a matter of fact, no quarterback has finished outside of the top 12 when facing Cleveland, as they rank 29th in passing yards allowed and have surrendered multiple touchdowns in all but 2 games this season. In addition, Cleveland had windy conditions last Sunday, but should dwindle this week, and the former 2-time Super Bowl MVP shouldn't struggle as much in those conditions today as Ben Roethlisberger did a week ago. Now, see, you even get a meteorologist report from Joan Madden, as well as me keeping your fantasy lineups bright and sunny. Moving on to the running back position, go with Thomas Rawls. Now, I'm not sure if he's related to the late, great Lou Rawls, but you'll never find a running back this week who has a better opportunity to shine. Now, Rawls missed some significant time earlier this season and had a timeshare backfield last week against Philly, but unfortunately, rookie CJ Prosise is out. Christian Michael is no longer with the Seahawks, and Coach Pete Carroll really wanted to sit Rawls out a little bit longer, but with the injury to Tromaine Pope, that ejected Thomas into the lineup earlier than anticipated. But now the backfield is all Rawls. No sharing is carrying mantra to follow this week, and the sophomore running back carries a 5.6 per carry average into the matchup against Tampa, so that also bids well for the undervalued running back. And I know fantasy owners have some concern, wondering if Rawls was rushed back from his fibula injury and if he's ready to take on such a heavy workload today. But the missing snaps he's had in practice this week is strictly for precautionary reasons, and it's for nothing more than general soreness. So he'll be fine, and so will you. What? Now, I just gave you a weather forecast in the previous segment when I was talking about Eli. Now I'm giving you medical updates on Rawls. But like I've been said, I've got you covered like a blanket. At the wide receiver position, I like Devontae Parker this week. The second-year ball catcher has definitely had his struggles with being consistent, but he has recently emerged. The Dolphins are swimming in the fast lane with a 5-game winning streak, and Parker has contributed most dominantly in the past couple of games by catching 13 out of his 18 targeted passes for 182 yards and a touchdown. And his reward for having such a good past couple of weeks, the San Francisco treat, comes to town. And I mean that literally, as the 49ers defense has been giving away yards, points, and touchdowns all season. In the past 4 weeks alone, wide receivers have finished in the top 10 against this lowly team who has lost every game since week number 1. And it doesn't get any better for the Niners, as top-tier safety Eric Reid is now on injured reserve due to a torn biceps ailment. So this will also increase Devontae Swing's chances at high volume and a continued increase in productivity. You definitely want to take Parker and park him in your starting fantasy lineups today. And at the tight end position, a latecomer, a late bloomer, if you will, but not only should you pick up Jared Cook if he's available, but also start him Monday night against the Eagles. Cook has been on ice since week number 3 due to an ankle injury, but returned with a remarkable outing against the Redskins, composed of half a dozen catches and filled his spot up with over 100 yards. Although there is a timeshare at the tight end position with Richard Rodgers, Cook has a 64 to 36% lead in snaps, so it's evident that Cook is hotter off the oven eye and is more favored to receive the bigger role. Couple that with the fact that Aaron Rodgers is his quarterback and he's a gunslinger, and Cook is ideal at the tight end position, working the seam, his route running, and he has the capability of getting open and an advantage with speed. And although Green Bay has been on a losing streak, the passing offense seems to be intact. So Jared should cook up the perfect blend of performance and productivity this week, and you should add him to your fantasy football's roster plate. Now, as for the bench warmers, guys you should sit this week. You know, guys that you want to start, but like Bryson Tiller said, yeah, those guys. Now, this one might surprise you and might even hurt your feelings, but I don't specialize in the saving feelings industry, okay? So, oh well. But I'm going to throw out this hard-to-believe possibility, but bench Matt Ryan this week. Y'all know that the Falcons are currently in first place in the NFC South, and Matty Ice has been putting up numbers to have him in the MVP candidate conversations, but he's going to get cooled off today against the Cardinals. Now, Arizona is 4th overall in yards allowed per attempt with only 6.3, and they're number 1 overall in passing touchdowns, allowing only 7 in the past 10 games. Furthermore, this stingy defense has forced 4 out of the 5 last quarterbacks outside of the top 20 rankings. Also, the Cardinals offense actually prefers to run the ball and control the clock, so a heavy dose of David Johnson on the field should keep Matt Ryan off the field, so this might also counterproduct his productivity and he should remain rather stagnant. I don't see an MVP caliber performance coming out of the former number 3 overall pick in today's contest, so it's best that you steer clear of Matt Ryan, and I'm not up to that lion about him possibly not stacking up against the Cards this afternoon. I'd also pop a pin in the Jeremy Hill balloon this week. Now, granted, he'll be receiving a heavier workload with the unfortunate and untimely torn ACL injury to Giovanni Bernard. Get better soon, Gio, by the way. But I don't particularly like the matchup for the struggling Bengals, but they do take on their divisional nemesis today in the AFC North, the Ravens. Over the past quarter of games, the Ravens held Matt Forte to only 3.3 yards per carry, Isaiah Crowell to 2.6 yards per carry, and even handcuffed Le'Veon Bell to 2.3 yards per carry. The juice wasn't loose that day, and I expect the drought to continue for Jeremy as he'll have a tough hill to climb. Plus, the Bengals lost another key component to their offense this week as A.J. Green will also be absent in today's matchup. So that will take away a dimension of their game plan, make them more vulnerable, and Baltimore's defense can definitely take advantage of that weakness. The Ravens also returned to M&T Bank Stadium today, and I'm sure that they want to avenge from what the Cowboys did to their defense last Sunday. And unfortunately, Hill will be the recipient of their wrath, so send him to your bench this week. Making more room on your bench this week, save a space for Tyrell Williams. Indeed, Williams has a gunslinger for a quarterback in Phillip Rivers, but this week even he is going to have a hard time against the harassing Texans defense. Jadeveon Clowney actually showed some aggression Monday night when he made his international presence shown in Mexico City against the Raiders. And I expect him to have an encore performance today as the Texans return home where they are a completely different football team. That defense will make it difficult for Rivers to even get Williams the ball. And when he does catch the ball, the dynamic duo of Jonathan Joseph and Kareem Jackson, and they are ball hawks, and they are amongst the top coverage cornerbacks in the league, so they'll be awaiting for him. Since the unfortunate departure of J.J. Watt earlier this season, the Texans secondary has stepped up, and they've landed themselves into the number 4 overall ranked pass defense, and they give up an average of only 217 yards per game. Plus, they're under the genius leadership of defensive coordinator Romeo Crennel. Yeah, that part. And it is extremely difficult to score touchdowns on this stingy defense, so do yourself a favor and send Williams to your bench this week. And lastly, to fill your bench this week, make sure that Coby Fleener takes a seat as well. Yes, I know that he's had 10 days to prepare for today's game, but I strongly dislike his matchup against the Rams. Hey, I'm aware of the fact that Fleener plays better at home, and yes, I'm taking into account that he had a touchdown in Charlotte 10 days ago. But despite that fact, his red zone targets are decreasing as quarterback Drew Brees runs more of his passing offense through the receiving core. Also, because the Rams have no offense, well, the Saints don't have any defense either, but New Orleans will run the ball more today because most likely they'll take an early lead in this contest. Consequently, that'll cause them to abandon the pass and lessen Fleener's chances for many receptions. In addition, his overall targets have also diminished, and he's caught 4 or less passes in under 50 yards in 4 out of the 5 last games, so that should also cause some concern. Too much inconsistency from the veteran tight end, but one thing that's for certain is you can set him on your bench this week. And did I mention that he was playing against the Rams? Again, if you're thinking about starting these guys, you better do what Bryson Tiller said and now for my favorite part of the show, hey, you need to get up, get out, and get something. Don't let these waiver wire studs pass you by. You need to get up, get out, and get something. Don't sleep since their stock is not high. Ow, as I remix Outkast and Goody Mob right there, okay? Now, I might be a little bit overdue on this, and it's only because he's been an inconsistent quarterback, but I do like Carson Wentz today. He has struggled a few times this season and adopted a he came and he went type of mantra, but this is a relatively favorable matchup for the rookie today. Unfortunately, we've seen the weekly and surprisingly disappointing crumbling of the Packers secondary, including Kirk Cousins of the Redskins putting up a nearly flawless 157.9 passer rating and tossing up 3 touchdowns for 291 yards against them last Sunday. Now, the Achilles heel for Wentz has been several drop passes by his temperamental receiving core, but because Aaron Rodgers is having personal success on the other side of the ball, it is also a requirement for the Eagles to put up points in this potential shootout. Wentz is also owned in only 35% of fantasy football leagues, and with this upcoming match against Green Bay, success for him and for you if you start him should be on the horizon Monday night. Now, I usually don't stick to the same game when making these predictions, but I couldn't resist on this one for a couple of reasons. Number one, this matchup is so favorable, and number two, because of some key injuries in the backfield for the Eagles. So I'm going with Wendell Smallwood as a sleeper running back this week. The Packers not only struggle to stop the pass, but they also can't stop the run either. And You saw what Robert Kelly did to them last week, even with the return of Clay Matthews to the lineup. In the past 5 out of 6 games, the Packers have surrendered a running touchdown, and I expect that trend to continue this week. Plus, with the inconsistency of Ryan Matthews because of productivity, fumbles, and injuries, and because of the uncertainty of Darren Sproles' productivity in this contest Monday night, and because of the actuality that he is a scat back and not really a bruiser, is another reason why I'm going to give the big look to Smallwood. He's owned in less than 25% of fantasy football leagues, and because the Packers have been befitting of the cheesehead garb and are currently playing Swiss cheesehead defense, Smallwood can fill up a hole in your roster on Monday night. Moving on to the wide receiver position, I'm zoning in on Brandon LaFell. Now, AJ Green is about as irreplaceable as the Beyonce tune, but because he's out and Giovanni Bernard is too, the Bengals have to turn to someone for their offense. The former LSU product has had a couple of flashes here and there this season with 4 touchdowns and has the potential to score multiple touchdowns in a game, as he did earlier this year against Dallas. Baltimore does a more effective job in stopping the run, but their pass defense is a little susceptible, allowing 44 catches for 570 yards and a grand total of 9 touchdowns by wide receivers this year. Yikes. Only San Francisco has allowed more. And for that reason, he'll also have more opportunities to connect with Andy Dalton. And I really like LaFell's chances in this AFC North contest against the Ravens today. He's definitely earned his stripes, converting from a Tiger to a Bengal, and the veteran is owned in less than 20% of fantasy football leagues. Now, if LaFell fell into your waiver wire in your fantasy football lineups, then you definitely need to pick him up. Now, for your sleeper tight end, now I had to go deep as the abyss on this one, but it could actually work out for you today, and I turned to Will Tye. Granted, he hasn't produced a lot of yards, but he's starting to find the end zone, and he has emerged into the Giants' primary tight end. And I'd be remiss not to mention that they're facing the generous Browns defense on the road today. Cleveland gives up the most points, the most receptions, and the most touchdowns to the tight end position. They just don't have an answer for the tight ends, and they've allowed 3 touchdowns to the position in its previous 3 games, and I expect for that trend to continue, as Tye could finish as a top 10 to top 15 tight end today. And while the Giants have been on this 5-game winning streak, Eli has started utilizing Tye more as his targets have increased, and he's been involved in 75% of the snaps. I get that there's really no reason to stream a tight end today, as no teams were on a bye and Tye is owned in less than 10% of fantasy football leagues. But if your starting tight ends have injuries or not so favorable matchups, or split time in a 2 tight end set like Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, or Lewis and Thomas, then you should have your eye on Tye today. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of your Fantasy Fulfilled. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and please don't forget to go out and get my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season, available on CreateSpace.com and Amazon.com. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN The Network, and continue to stay tuned. So just chill to the next episode. Thanks again so much, and we'll catch you next time, and I'm out. What's going on, good people? It's your girl again, Latasha Miles, aka Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at she_SPN, and at Facebook at Latasha Joan Madden Miles. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN The Network. Hey, I'm kind of a big deal. You know, I'm a little bit cute, got some beauty, got some brains. That way on that channel, you'll be able to see the interviews that I've done, some of the famous people that I worked with, the projects I worked on, things of that nature. And don't forget to log on to CreateSpace.com and Amazon.com and get your copies of my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season. I appreciate your support, and hey, I gotta run. They're over here calling me on the other line. I gotta manage another fantasy football league. I'm out.
Gon' kick it off there. Whoa. Gon' kick it off then. Whoa. Hold up, we living big dreams now. As it seems now, we doing big things now. You on a small scale, we do it nationally. With an all-girls squad, now that's a fantasy league. Whoa. You better stay in